it's just good to talk, It's
Yeah,
fun to see you and catch up.
totally.
I feel like we're kind of these travelers on the same path.
I know.
Yeah. So,
Well, um, on that note, one of the things I was curious to ask about because there's there's so much similarity. So this whole what's her name? Myrna Hansen, that case.
Hmm.
When was that? What year was that?
May of 1980, it started.
or
1980.
Myrna Hansen?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Sorry.
Um, could you sort of just briefly explain what her deal was? What was going on with her?
Her deal was that she claimed her and her son were abducted or beamed up into a UFO where they saw a cow being mutilated. Actually, before they got beamed up in the ship, they saw the cow beamed up and they followed afterwards, and the aliens put her, as kind of a typical alien abduction as we knew them, like in the 80s and 90s, transported up into a ship, underwent some type of medical procedure. Both she and her son did. And that was the initial account. And then she got beamed down or whatever, and she went to the cops uh, to tell them she'd been abducted by aliens. She was hysterical, and the cops didn't know what to do with her. This was in Cimarron, New Mexico. And so they contacted Gabe Valdez, who's a key player in this whole story. And he knew Paul Bennewitz, and he transported Myrna Hansen to Bennewitz. Bennewitz had contacts with a UFO group, and in that group, they had regression therapists who were doing, alien abduction regressions, I guess, for want of a better description. And Benowitz took her into his home for several weeks, it appears, where she went under a number of regression. And the story expanded beyond just being beamed up into the ship. There was more to the story, I guess, that she'd been abducted more than once, taken to an underground facility at one point, once again going under some type of medical procedure. She broke loose from the aliens, was running through an underground facility where she saw body parts and an amber liquid, the shit out of X-Files. So that was her basic story there, and went under, period of time at Benowitz's house. I think she had, it's hard to uh, get the story totally clear, but it sounded like her mother was with her and her son, and that Benowitz's wife also got involved in this. They felt they were being bombarded by aliens, so with beams. So the first regression he did in his Lincoln Town Car, they wrapped foil around it, like a tinfoil hat to deflect the beams. Eventually, he created a Faraday cage type contraption, and all these other sensors and things to counteract the effects of the alien beams, which who knows what they were. They might have been non-lethal weapons and other things being used on Benowitz during this period by uh, people connected, security, Air Force, Office of Special Investigations. The NSA also got involved in this story, and it all surrounded what was going on also at Kirtland Air Force Base, which kind of kicked off the story. Benowitz had these sightings of UFOs at Kirtland's and started picking up these signals. So the story was, or how it's been spun by some people involved in it, such as Richard Doty, that they basically fostered the belief, helped foster the belief in Bennewitz of what he was witnessing, the aircraft over Kirtland's and these beams and signals he was picking up were actually, uh, testing weapons, advanced aircraft, satellites, spy satellites, and Bennewitz was picking up on all of this stuff, and they were concerned he was going to figure out what it was, maybe share some of this information with spies. That's kind of it in a nutshell.
Hmm.
And he first started witnessing stuff in the like December of 79. Hansen didn't come into the story until, like I said, May of 1980. And there's some who suspect, and something that makes sense, that she was actually part of this psyops, this counterintelligence operation to fuck with his head. And she's kind of a mysterious figure. Nobody really knows what happened to her afterwards. She disappeared. I always like to say, if you look on do a Google search of Myrna Hansen, you'll come up with a actress
Actress.
from the 1940s and 50s. And so, was Myrna Hansen, whoever she was that her name? Was she playing a role in this whole thing?
Did you guys ever find any info on her or track anything or?
I found some Facebook pages that I don't know. I think it was Bishop that said she had ended up in California, or he heard that from someone. It yeah, it's very difficult to kind of track her down, I feel like.
I mean, there's material to dig into. There's transcripts from her regressions that are available. And I think there was a lot more, and some of that might be hidden away in the Leo Sprinkle archives in Wyoming. He was the regression therapist, and he plays heavily into the story of not only Myrna Hansen, the Bennewitz affair, but other UFO experiencers who felt that he might have been up to no good
Hmm.
as well.
Yeah, I want to talk about him because I actually talked to him on the phone years
Oh,
ago.
hmm.
But before that, the Myrna Hansen thing is interesting to me because a lot of stuff obviously for me always relates back to Puharich just because I spent so much time looking into that. But there's so many figures involved in his story that were either part of his sort of channeling groups or and oddly enough, particularly women who were like a channeler of his who would,
Mm.
bring through information under trance and so forth. But when I was rewatching your film earlier, like the whole story of Hansen was so similar to a couple of the individuals who worked with Puharich because it was kind of the same thing. They went crazy, for lack of a better term, went off the grid, are completely impossible to track down. Everyone who knew them or just have no idea what happened to them. It's very strange.
Well, part of the deal is I'm pretty sure that Sprinkle used aliases for the people he regressed. So Myrna Hansen was most likely an alias. Actually, a guy we talked to, David Daniel Rydell, he's been looking into those archives, and this is before we started talking about Myrna Hansen in that situation. He said he had been through the archives and saw a list of the different abductees who had been regressed along with their aliases and their real names.
Well,
And so, that's kind of a possible lead there. If, he said when he went back to the archives, he tried to find it. that the list he came across, because it's, you know how when you're going through archives, you're just going through a lot of different stuff, not taking time to catalog it or find out, even jot down in which file it was. So
Hmm.
it's somewhere in those Sprinkle archives, and it's the same deal with some of Jacques Vallée's archives. It's like they're releasing them over a period of time. It's like the whole archives won't be released until like 10
Hmm.
or 15 years, and it's like, why did they do that?
Yeah, that is. Well, speaking of the, how did you find? Well, obviously they're at the university where he taught, but how did you discover that those existed, and how did you get access and start looking at all that sprinkle stuff in particular?
I found the Sprinkle archive when I was looking for Paul Bennewitz material, but we didn't really get too much into it
Mm-mm.
at all until after we talked to David Rydell, and he gave us all of his work or most of the documents that he had scanned and stuff. So I've still been looking through that,
What
like
kind of
last
stuff
week.
was in there? It is in there.
Well, there would be like little photo negatives of flying saucers his dad supposedly had taken, and they were just like little black negatives with pinholes in them where the UFO supposedly was. And he said he had taken those pictures and it burned a hole in the film in the negative. So just weird, odd stuff like that. But then a lot of deeds and water rights and um, he was a farmer, so it was like a lot of his crops, the grading, how they grade the crops and things, just stuff like that.
Hmm.
All that water rights key to the stories because the ETs, if I remember correctly, instructed him to where to drill a well, which became I think the best producing artesian well in that area. And then afterwards, there was a water rights issues and court battles, and eventually he lost that land. And he felt that Sprinkle was somehow involved with him losing the rights, and the University of Wyoming. It's a long, involved story.
Which we're going to have a podcast about it pretty
Yeah.
soon.
Yeah, I'm interested because it's not worth getting into really now, but I was trying to do something on Don Elkins. Yeah, do you know him? There's
Mm-mm.
the law of one and the raw material and that
Oh
whole
yeah.
channeled book from the early 80s. And I have them right here. Funny enough, it's gonna do that thing where you doesn't show them, but can you?
Move it around a lot.
Anyways, it's oh, here you go.
There it is.
So this it's a I can send you pictures. It's a crazy story, but this yeah, I was trying to do something on him because he had a really it's kind of like a Benowitz story in a way. I mean, he in the
Mm.
sense that he kind of sadly like was driven crazy and had a very bizarre the suicide death
Hmm.
but he was interesting with someone that knew him or someone whose father knew Elkins was like they used to do these channeling sessions and I have all these recordings from like those are from the 1960s, 61, 62 and she was like if you want them, yeah, I can just send them to you and they're like 4 hour long tapes
Oh wow.
and they are really kind of interesting to listen to. But the point is, I was trying to do something on that story, but it wound me to sprinkle. And this was years ago, but I talked to him for like a while on the phone. I think I recorded the conversation actually. I should look
Cool.
back at that. Yeah,
Yeah.
but he struck me as kind of an odd guy.
Yeah. Hypnotist in general, I'm very wary of.
what do you think? Oh, I guess you're going to do a podcast on it, so you don't have to get into it. But what I was going to ask, the Myrna Hansen thing too, and the Bennewitz, and this is again something that has come up a lot in the Puharich story as well, is this idea that a lot of the a lot of the stuff that maybe Bennewitz was experiencing was sort of weapons testing, and it was the aliens are speaking was sort of like a cover for that situation taking place. And I've suspected that something very similar was potentially going on with a lot of the stuff Puharich was involved in, and around that same time, literally 70, well, more like 78, 77, 78, but
Hmm.
into that time period. So, um, what do you think about that?
You want to answer that, Adam?
Go ahead. I know you have some ideas on it.
Oh, I mean, it's just all speculation, really. I mean, they were doing weapons testing or non-lethal weapons. I think it just kind of, come in to Kirtland around that time, or Los Alamos area, or what was the Sandia Labs?
Hmm.
Mm,
And so, I don't, it would seem like a plausible explanation for some of the stranger things that were happening to Benowitz, like the balls of light. And I ended up finding footage of, weird energy directed balls of light that you could bounce off walls and communicate through. But um, that was like in 2010 or something, that
Hmm.
footage. So it was like, who knows, was it? But
mm,
I think John Alexander had maybe had come in around that time too. Maybe it could have been a little later in the 90s, but he could have been there by that time. I don't know.
mm,
Well, there's connection to all those dudes with the with Bill Moore when he got involved in this in 1980. He was approached by intelligence operatives, supposedly, Doty at least, and started. He was interacting with these other folks in and out of the government, and that's where they started the whole aviary thing, having code names for these guys. So when they talked to him on the phone, uh, Doty was Falcon,
mm,
or other people claim there was another Falcon. But he's over time through that decade, John Alexander, I'm pretty sure, was one of those people who he was talking to during that period. And Alexander, there's a book called I think it's called Out There by Ralph Bloom. He was a
yeah.
New York Times reporter, and that was like 88 or so. And they in that book they're talking about a secret government UFO program, people investigating them. And it was just like a short-lived thing. And John Alexander was basically in charge of this kind of ad hoc group within the government. I think they were, looking at a number of things, advanced physics stuff, this what later uh, Bigelow had those contracts with the government. With a lot of these same players were involved with Bigelow, Pudoff, Kit Green,
Mm,
John Alexander. Alexander later worked for Bigelow with NIDS, National Institute of Discovery Science, that group that later were kind of involved in Skinwalker Ranch before that got sold. So it's that whole group of people. And Alexander was, yeah, he was pretty heavily involved in non-lethal weaponry at Los Alamos, during that period in the 80s. And so that, yeah, uh, Moore and was interacting with all these guys in the aviary who was involved with this stuff, and it was basically the same type of project that started led to TTSA. Elizondo claiming they were doing to the Stars Academy, claiming he had been involved in a UFO research group. But if you really get down into the weeds, it was just doing these. A lot of it was just scientific papers and some experiments these guys were doing. Once again, Pudov was involved with this. One thing that's interesting is uh, what's his name? Elizondo claimed that his group was ATIP, which was very close to the acronym that Alexander used for his group back in the late 80s. It was ATP, Advanced Theoretical Physics. Now, Elizondo later admitted they just made up ATIP. It was actually at what is it, ASWIPE or ASAP. So it seems to be the same thing going over a period of time with the same people that have their hands in a lot of this stuff, non-lethal weaponry, promoting UFOs, paranormal stuff, electromagnetic kind of stuff. Puharich was deeply interested in.
Yeah, I wanted to
as
ask,
well.
like, what kind of part to the Puharich story, or made you think there were weapons testing?
Well, I mean, I don't want to ruin the film because it's not
Okay, sure.
out
Yeah,
yet,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I mean, it's basically illustrated in the film. But I guess you could say he was. It's really interesting because no one seems to really talk about, like a lot of this Havana syndrome stuff is back in the news and the 60 Minutes piece and everything. But Puharich and this guy Bob Beck. Oh yeah, we talked about Bob Beck, who is super interesting guy, and in fact, in Canada, his archives are kept up there, and I've been working my way into getting access to that stuff. But they sort of blew the whistle on that research and that technology in the late 70s, again, like going into 79, 80, the same time period. But there's you may have seen it, there's a CNN special from 84 or 85. It's on YouTube, and it's about radio frequency weapons. And have you seen it? Or
I have not. That
yeah,
sounds really
you
interesting.
could anyone could see it right now. It's CNN 84, 85, and it's a special where a reporter is talking about this idea that the Russians have been experimenting and using radio frequency weapons, and that the US is also looking into it, but they might not be. But it's this whole special. But the
The
point is,
woodpecker signal.
yeah, exactly. Um, and that was 79, I think, when that broke. But the point is that at a certain point in the special, they go to this lab and they're filming these scientists inside a house, and that footage is actually taken inside the Reynolds estate, which is where Puharich and a couple, Elizabeth Rauscher, the woman, these kind of like quote unquote fringe scientists were all being funded by this guy Josh Reynolds of the Reynolds tobacco family. And the footage from that special is being filmed there, and they're in a lab, they're doing all these electronic tests, and the host is kind of sitting in a chair and being tested on, and he's sort of agreeing like, yes, I can. They're trying to send things into his head, and he's saying, I can feel it. And but they cut to interviews of all the scientists, and one of the people is like, the classic shadowed out black
I
figure, but
love it.
it's Puharich. There's no question about it. Like,
Oh,
and they
cool.
they even say, this scientist who works for the U.S. government did not want to be identified, and if you put a portrait of him up against that shadow, it's clearly him. But it's a long way of saying like that's the stuff that he was doing in that time period, and it's
Interesting.
clearly displayed in this, CNN piece that was broadcast on television. So it's not like it's
Mm,
that secret, but obviously whatever he was doing was enough where they needed to shadow him out from that piece, I guess.
mm,
But I couldn't help but just see like, yeah, it's such a similar time period to Benowitz, and it's so similar in what was going on with this idea of, creating um, abduction experiences and all this kind of stuff, which he may have been doing as well, I think.
Yeah, all those characters overlapped. I know Puharic and all the, new Pudoff and Filet and out they're, they're all connected or knew what the others were doing.
Yeah, one person actually I had a note, but as far as the aviary group, this guy Jack Verona.
Oh yeah,
Who-
uh-huh.
What? So I'm pretty sure and I can't. I should have looked it up. I just didn't do it in time. But I'm almost positive there's some documents in the archives I have of Buharches where that name appears more than
mm.
once.
He's one of the more mysterious characters of the aviary.
Yeah. Who? So what do you know about him?
Um, I was I was looking through some old Japanese footage. It had it was about John Alexander, and they show a photo of this guy, and I'm like, I've seen that photo. And I started looking, like reverse searching through the image search on Google, and I found a picture of that picture, and it said it was Jack Verona, but that's about all I know about him, Adam.
Well, supposedly Kit Green, once again, supposedly ran the science desk for the CIA for some period of time, whatever that was. It's hard to know
Hmm.
how much to believe. And that when Kit Green left, Verona took over that job with the CIA. Now, who knows for sure,
Hmm.
But it sounds like, yeah, he was within the agency for a period of time.
Or
Hmm.
he was actually somehow involved with the Star Wars program, if I'm recalling right, around in the 80s. I
Hmm.
don't remember exactly. Could be misremembering that, but I'll double check that.
Yeah, that uh, sounds right.
Hmm. Another guy I was curious about, who I don't think is really in the film, but he's in the book, is C.B. Scott Jones.
Hmm.
And the reason is because he's another guy I corresponded with, years
Oh,
ago.
wow. Cool.
I have some emails from him because he worked with Claiborne Pell, who is a senator from Rhode Island, which is where I'm from and grew up and everything. And so at one point I was looking at Pell's, archives, which didn't really seem to have anything related to his, ESP interests and that kind of thing. But I know that guy Scott Jones was involved with him, but he seems like another very sort of mysterious figure in all this.
Yeah, I don't have a lot or know a lot about him other than what I covered in the book, and I'd have to think
Hmm.
what that was exactly. But
I found I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
no,
interrupt.
go ahead. I'll think while you're talking.
Yeah, I found it was it's about an hour of some footage with CB Scott Jones and Rima Libo, who appears in UFO Cover Up Live. And they're just like I feel like it's Northern California because they're talking about auras and crystals and just weird kind of Esalen Institute kind of stuff. It
Mm.
may be even there, but they're all sitting around and just talking about how all their journeys, what they found in Russia, and they brought back some metamaterials from Russia, and how the UFO story is just going really big over there. And they start talking about the God helmet and talking with dolphins and stuff. It's just good stuff like that. So it's a pretty fun piece of footage.
Where is that? What is that from?
I don't remember where I found it. I have it on my hard drive though.
Hmm. I'd be interested to see that.
Yeah, get you a copy.
Yeah. Um, I'm trying to think of I had like all these questions, but they're so kind of scattered.
Earlier, when you were talking about the woodpeckers
Yeah.
signal, is that the Moscow signal? Is that the same thing?
Well, when I first heard about it was Thomas Bearden, who's also part of that
Hmm.
Puharic signal. Like in the mid 80s, I remember hearing it over. Bill Jenkins had a paranormal radio show in LA, and he had Colonel Thomas Bearden on there, and he was talking about this woodpecker signal that people were picking up, and the Ruskies were using it as I'm not even clear. You have any idea what the ultimate goal of this woodpecker signal was,
Well, they
Greg?
they they claimed it was for large scale mind control
Oh,
experimentation.
huh.
So, if there's footage of the thing, well, I think to answer your question, Chris, the Moscow signal was that was there was something called Project Pandora, which was way
Yes.
earlier, like in the 60s, early
Mhm.
60s, where they were monitoring there's some signal that was penetrating at a government building, but
Like an embassy
yeah.
in Moscow.
Yeah, exactly. But the woodpecker was later in like late 70s. Again,
Okay.
it seems like all this stuff is always like in the late 70s, particularly 77, 78. But yeah, the woodpecker was 77, at least when Puharich claimed
Hmm.
to have, discovered what it was doing. But they said, and it's interesting because there's these notebooks of Puharich's where he's again, it's above my head scientifically, and he was,
Hmm.
I guess, a lot of people don't realize, like, extremely intelligent. I mean, I think a lot of people just thought he was a kook scientist, but he was keeping track um of the signal somehow using some machinery, and we have this notebook that's like
Mm.
super dense of like every single time during
Interesting.
the day for weeks on end. And but yeah, they claim Bearden and Puharich were really into it, and they claim that it was being used to send a certain ELF, extremely low frequency
Yeah.
signal, to a large population of people, and so it would cause them all to either go into riotous behavior or all get depressed. And from what I understand, I
Docile or
mean,
something.
yeah, that's like really can happen. Whether or not it does on a large scale like that, I don't know. But I think that's what they claim the idea
Hmm.
was. And if you look at images of it, I mean, it is huge. The woodpecker um, thing,
Gosh, I've never heard of it.
yeah, you should look it up. There's a really good documentary just about that. Did you hear about that, Adam?
I don't think so, no.
It's called, I can't remember what it's called, but it was pretty successful. It was like at Sundance and everything.
Hmm.
And it
Hmm.
was this younger kid who was kind of going back and investigating that. I haven't seen it. Probably should, but
Yeah,
um,
I'll check that out.
but
I
that's
wanted I wanted to mention the cast of characters in the John Ronson book, The Men Who Stare at Goats. You guys are familiar with that, right?
Love it.
hmm,
So yeah, like Alexander and C.B. Scott Jones and Colonel Alex Stubblebind, I think was the name of the dude who was like running that project or kind of spearheading, trying to create whatever the hell they were doing,
Hmm.
making super soldiers, an elite fighting force that would use their mental powers and such,
Hmm.
mind over matter. And so, yeah, that's all just
Yeah.
more of the cast of characters that are involved in this circle, from the Aviary to Puharic to the men who stare at goats, guys.
Mhm. I
Yeah.
think Rima Libo, too, the lady I was talking about earlier, she married Stubblebine, at least at some point.
Yeah, I was trying to remember which one she married, Stubblebine or Jones, but yeah, you're right. And they did trips over to the Soviet Union, like an exchange program with people who had knowledge of psychic experiments and that type of stuff. So, what was going on? It sounded like a spy operation almost.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Something interesting I found was in these archives of, I think it was the Stargate stuff, with
Hmm.
SRI and all that. And I don't think it was the official archives of the Stargate, but it was someone affiliated with that. But they had this video in there, and it was all in Russian, and it was, I think, a TV. It seemed as though it was like a recording of a TV broadcast, and
Hmm.
it was some show where, once again, I'm pretty sure it was like 79 or 80. I'm positive it was one of those years, and
Mhm.
it was sort of like an investigative show in Russia, and at one they were talking about ELF and radio frequency and weapon devices and so forth. And at one point, they go to this like bioacoustic laboratory or something, and they're interviewing a scientist. And so my friend's wife is from Moldova, and so she speaks Russian. So I asked her, and she got her friend who. This was before I discovered, the AI stuff could translate it, but she translated it. But basically, he was describing in this video a device where you could someone could be sitting in another room, and the scientist was in the next room over, divided by a wall, and it was a device that was sending, a certain ELF acoustic wave to the person through the wall, and they were hearing what this guy was saying in the microphone. They were hearing in their head. And this goes back to stuff Puharich was doing like in the 60s, like the early to mid 60s. But I did that. This video is in that archive, so seemingly someone had tape recorded this off the TV and were using it for
Huh.
research, I guess. Yeah, it was really,
Interesting.
yeah. And they clearly show, he's demonstrating it on camera. Of course, you can't understand it, but you can clearly see he's like talking, and they walk to the other room, and the woman's, acting as though she's hearing it. And yeah.
Hmm.
So you got to wonder if that was like something Benowitz was
Hmm.
maybe
Yeah.
experiencing.
Was this video was it mixed in with like people levitating forks or something like that?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, maybe, I think.
No, this sounds really
Yeah.
familiar for some reason, but
Yeah. It was in the, yeah, I can't remember who. It was, somebody affiliated with the whole Stargate and the remote viewing and all that. But um, yeah,
hmm.
but maybe just like we could probably wrap up soon, but just like some basic stuff about the film, like how did you and Adam team up, and why did you decide to want to do this?
Well, I mean, um, I've been wanting to make a UFO movie for like years and years, and then it wasn't until COVID and I was getting stir crazy that I decided to actually go through with it. And so I was reading a lot of different books, and a friend turned me on to Adam's book, and it was like I had just found all of these Japanese documentaries with all of the footage that could, be archival for the book. And so it was kind of synchronistic in that way. So I was like, yeah, well, maybe I should pursue this. So, and then I contacted Adam, and yeah, he was into it. So, um, what part of the pitch what sold you, Adam? Why you're like, I'll take a chance on this weirdo?
Oh, hell, I don't know. I just kind of got to know you, and it sounded like you had a good background. Let's give it a shot.
Yeah,
You
all
know, and
right.
I didn't know till we started actually working on it that, had a good, what's the word?
Rapport.
There you go. It's the word I
Yeah.
was looking for. So, yeah, it worked out great.
I was curious, like in the film, there's those shots where you're sitting in your, is that your house? Or I mean, it's like, oh, the old
It's actually a set we created in my garage.
okay. Yeah. Is that because that's really cool, all that stuff. I mean, I assume you probably have research and things and tapes and things from over the
Uh,
years.
Not exactly like that, no.
No.
I had the concept came from a couple things. One was John Lear. If you've ever seen John Lear at his house, he had these at one time it was like a dozen television monitors behind him, and he has a big desk and all these files and stuff. He was the famous UFO researcher, and it seemed kind of ludicrous. Why do you need a dozen TVs? But that was partly the concept, and kind of just to make uh, poke fun at myself or whatever.
Or just kind of like um weirdos in their basements.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Living with their parents.
So getting to the bottom of the UFO mystery.
And so, yeah, we got into that kind of uh, somebody who was in the field, in that field, or UFOs in the 80s and 90s. They'd have all these video cassettes and all this paraphernalia from that period. And of course, the mother I was going to say mothership, the murder board we set up. So it was
Hmm.
a good way to tell the story. Wasn't sure, we hadn't decided actually what my role was. I was going to be interviewed for the film, but what I saw, uh, what was needed was somebody to tie in the different parts to add context. We go from this clip interview to this, and so it needed some explaining.
Hmm.
And so it kind of developed along those lines. Then at one part, I got the crazy idea to for the set, and even my character, we kind of made it like when we first started reading, doing some of those segues, calling my narration. I did it pretty dry and straight, and that was kind of boring. It was really wouldn't work. We need to amp it up a little bit. So we made it a little bit quirky and campy.
Hmm.
It's a serious subject, but to inject a little humor into the film.
Hmm.
Right. Break
At
some
least that was
levity.
my intent.
Hopefully it worked.
I love it. Yeah. Those Bennewitz tapes. Where do
Mhm.
those originate from?
Those are at the Rice College in Austin, I think. I think that's the archive they were at.
Oh, really? That's funny because I
Mhm.
was just right before we started, and I was telling you about some. Yeah, he's currently working with them.
Hmm.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Who is?
Yeah. Or
Someone I know.
Okay, I don't,
I'll tell you
don't this.
off the.
Yeah.
I don't
Hmm.
know. But do you know where it came? Where that's interesting that
Oh,
those would have been
well,
there.
it was
Isn't it Haynes is
it's Richard
Richard
Haynes.
Haynes, yeah. And
Yeah.
he with what was Hynek's group, the CUFOs, Center for UFO Studies. That's the group that uh, Valet was also belonged to during that period. And they had Richard Haynes, he was another scientist, and he was the one who first talked to Bennewitz. And so that was basically, yeah, him calling up Bennewitz, seeing what was going on, and Bennewitz gave him an earful.
Hmm. And what came of Benowitz as far as you
He
know?
was hospitalized in 88, and then after that, he he probably just worked at Thunder Scientific, as far as we know. I mean, what do you know anything else than that, Adam?
Yeah, I'm not sure when his family encouraged him to seek help in a mental facility. I'm not sure how long that was, whether it was months or a year or two. And then the last we heard of him was like, yeah, in that late 80s period, different researchers who got interested again in the story, like Krista Tilton and John Lear, approached him. And so there were some contacts in 88, 89, maybe. Then after that, he basically left the field.
Hmm.
And I think it might have had to do with his interactions with John Lear. I'm not sure how much we touch on that in the film. It
Yeah, I
does get
mean,
touched on, doesn't it, Chris?
it does, yeah. He that was in let's see, September of 1987 when John Lear comes to Benowitz's house and he's possibly was taking documents or, who knows what, but they had a falling out and Benowitz was pretty upset after that. And then I feel like Greg Bishop might have said it was shortly after this that he was, hospitalized and
Okay,
it
that
was
could be true. Yeah.
and then it was only for a short time for, a matter of months, if I remember right. But um yeah, John Lear could have been the instigator.
As far as I understand, he had sort of come out as like an intelligence connected, right?
Well, I
Lear.
John Lear.
mean,
Yeah.
you go ahead.
Yeah, he claimed he flew for Air America during the Vietnam era, and there does seem to be some documentation on that. And there's also in Chris Lambright's book, it's a bit to get into, but he and Doty might have first came in contact during that period, working for the CIA in Laos at a listening station, whenever that was, early 70s, 72, 73.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, Laird never tried to hide his connections, but it seemed they were basically being as a contract pilot for the company.
Hmm. Yeah. And of course, he was involved with Lazar.
Oh
Oh
yeah, right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Pretty
a few
close knit.
things.
Hmm.
Yeah.
To say the least, yeah.
Yeah. Um. Well, to wrap it up, because this is also kind of the way the film wraps up, is and which I thought is really great of how this all connects to the stars academy situation. And I honestly have to say I don't other than what you have in the film, which is really good, like I never really followed that all too much, you know um
Hmm.
but what's like a nutshell sort of interpretation of what you think that group was, the to the stars?
Oh man. Of Chris?
Well, I just remember Greg Bishop, and I think that I even put this in the film because it was so succinct, is he was like they were a stepping stone to get to this other place in the narrative that they wanted to, push through whatever information that they were trying to push through. Once they got to that stage, they cut Tom DeLonge loose, and he kind of did fall off out of the narrative, so to speak. And then in comes Lou Elizondo. So I don't know. I was just going with what Bishop was saying,
Yeah,
which
there
seemed plausible.
there are definitely different agendas at play with To the Stars Academy and the people involved in it. You got all these ex-intelligence people, and I think, yeah, it's different agendas. Some want to be there's the aerospace industry, and there's definitely people within that group trying to land contracts with the government. I think Bigelow is kind of the hidden hand in all of this, though he's way behind the scenes in it. Elizondo seems like somebody who, yeah, he's into the government contracts and different projects going on, but he also wanted to be UFO famous. And before he left the Pentagon, he kind of uh, laid the groundwork with some shady paperwork to basically later point back and say, yeah, I was part of this secret UFO group. So you got all these characters involved in different aspects, and also, pushing the ET narrative. It and the through line, goes back to Project Stargate with Pudov, and he was involved in the Aviary, and Bigelow seemed to be involved in this, and Skinwalker Ranch also led to the Stars Academy. And once again Bigelow. So all of this seems to be connected with kind of the same cast of recurring characters over the years.
Yeah, I know. I guess we'll see what happens with this big Trump
Oh,
disclosure.
it's not going to be anything. It never is anything.
Well,
I
maybe
mean,
this is the
it
one. This
it
will be the one time.
what not with Doc releasing documents. No,
Hmm.
I mean, if they release what, going to release the MJ12 documents again?
Well, it's
It's
funny
it's
because
it's not going to be anything. Trust me.
no, I'm just kidding. I mean, yeah, it's funny because it seems as though the MJ12 conversation is sort of back
Is it
in the
really?
spot. Well, yeah, I'm not on it all the time, but as far as I can see lately on Twitter, there's been a bunch of people posting stuff getting back into the whole MJ12 document situation.
Good Lord.
Was it
Yeah.
you that you told me that it had turned up in the Epstein files or something, Greg?
Uh, I don't think so.
Okay, sorry.
I don't think so.
It was in something that you had told me it had turned up in, and I was like, oh.
Yeah. I'll have to look back at maybe our texts. Yeah,
I
that's
looked
right.
into it, and it was like I think it was there was like the set of MJ stuff that had come out like in the 90s,
Hmm.
and it was part of that release.
Hmm.
And then somehow it had ended up in this release of other documents, but I can't remember what that was at the time.
One odd angle to all of this is, of course, the Roswell story is a big part of the MJ12 story, MJ12 papers. Basically, the MJ12 papers was an Eisenhower briefing document. Group set up to brief Eisenhower about the ET situation, and it confirmed the Roswell crash. And so it's been trotted out time and again, and that's what was laid. Somebody, according to Tom DeLonge, now we're getting into the WikiLeaks and the emails
Hmm.
of Tom DeLonge reaching out to John Podesta,
Hmm.
that he'd been in contact with this General McCasland, who was seemingly who worked at Wright-Patterson Air Base and technology stuff, and seemed to be confirming the Roswell crash. And at that same period, Billy Corgan, somebody contacted him with that same information, like they were looking for a front man to push this. And so just to kind of put a ribbon on this, McCaslin is that guy who general retired now, who came up missing, and there's a search for him in the basically the Albuquerque area.
I thought that might come up tonight. Yeah. That's a weird story, man.
I have to say I've looked at it, and I mean, something strange is afoot there.
Definitely.
Well, it could be. It could be a number of things. It could be some wacko saying, McCaslin, God damn it, where's the aliens hidden at, you know?
Yeah.
Let's hope
It does seem
he's
odd.
okay.
It just seems odd to me that it's a case that he wandered off, and it's been what, like several weeks now, and now.
Yeah.
Huh.
It's like the whatever, Savannah Guthrie's mom too. I mean, she's
Yeah, that is strange too. We don't have to get into that though.
no.